Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to TLC Live. Today is November 9, the day after elections. What a night.
What a night.
What a day. What a midterms election. Shocking results in many ways and happy in another results. And I let you take the microphone because this is your expertise.
Well, you don't win them all. Let's use the baseball analogy. The Astros have been to the World Series. They don't win them all, but it's good to win. In sports, as well as in politics, I think you need to be a gracious winner and a gracious loser. One of the things that struck me as the Houston Astros won against Philadelphia Phillies was how complimentary both teams were of each other after the ball game. The Astros thought the Phillies were a great team. The Phillies thought that the Astros were a spectacular team. That's called sportsmanship, and America loves that. The same thing ought to happen in politics. When you lose, as I've often lost, you call your opponent and you congratulate them. And when you win, you're gracious about your victory, and you talk to your opponent, and of course you have to feel what they're feeling, having invested a lot of time, money, and sacrifice from their families, away from their families. They're the losers, and so you have to be gracious. And unfortunately, there are some very ungracious winners in Texas. I think that we're going to highlight one of the most despicable tweets I've seen in politics in a long time, and that came from Henry Cuellar, who won a race in South Texas against Cassie Garcia for the United States Congress. And it's on the screen. You can read it for yourself, but it says, looks like you'll have plenty of free time to audition for Narcos in the future, Cassie Garcia. Nice try, Cassie. It may require you learning some Spanish. Rosetta Stone is on standby. Now, he has apparently removed that. But that is, my friends, the epitome of an ungracious and regrettably bad politics in America and in this state.
Not only that, it's like just being a gentleman.
Exactly.
That's it. I mean, basic stuff.
So
basic stuff.
Well, let me apologize for Representative-elect Henry Cuellar. That's despicable and embarrassing. Now,
and I guess somebody told him to delete the tweet,
but
we got it.
Of course they did. All right. I look at politics as perhaps a group of investors would look at stocks. I like to invest in trends. I like to look at energy stocks, whether it's Chevron or Exxon, and see the trends, see their portfolio, see their debt, see their return on investments, return on equity, and make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to invest in that equity, that stock, whether it be Ford or General Motors or Chevron or Exxon or, Meta and any of the new technology stocks. Same thing in politics. While everybody gets excited about this candidate won, that candidate lost, the trends are important to me. And I think, just on cursory observation last night, because I was on Channel 11 with Bob Stein commenting on the elections, what I saw, I like the trends. Now, Texas Latino Conservatives is in the process right now of analyzing, crunching the data, and we will report hopefully by next week or within 10 days where the trends are. But I think the trends look favorable for conservative Hispanics in Texas. Now, having said that, we are fortunate enough to have one of the victors, and a man that certainly deserves victory because he's worked extremely hard. I've gotten to know John Lujan, State Representative John Lujan, over the years, and he's a jewel of a human being. And so San Antonio and Bexar County are blessed to have John Lujan reelected as a state representative in a county that's historically blue, Democrat. We now have John Lujan being reelected to his position. So, John, congratulations. We're so proud of you. I can't express how I feel for you and your family.
John, felicitaciones.
Hey, Andrea and Orlando, thank you all so much for having me on. I am excited about the win. It came like with mixed emotions. Here in Bexar County, you're right. It's a blue county, but I got to have good friends with Mark LaHood, Trish DeBerry, a lot of the judges, and it didn't go good. However, with that being said, the groundwork that we're laying, and Orlando, I think you hit it. I'm really interested in being on next week to watch you guys next week to see those results from those numbers because we're crunching them also. But I think we've laid the groundwork, and it takes good, solid, conservative men and women to put their names out there to get the fight going because we're cracking that door. And I'm telling you what, it's happening and the movement is happening. And we've already seen some successes and we've seen a few setbacks, but those setbacks are to be expected. That's what happens when we have this change. And to be honest, Orlando, I was a little worried too when I saw the early vote numbers come in and I saw how it was more blue, and I was thinking, man, are we going to withstand that? But we came out, we prevailed, and we came out very, very well. And I think I want to even model my race to see what did I do, how did we do things, so that we can push those values moving forward. I think uh, people react to it, and people want that change.
Well, I think that you're a stellar candidate, and I think that's what people don't realize. The product means a lot in elections. There's a reason that people choose Tide over, Clorox or some other brand, or Coca-Cola over Pepsi-Cola or Dr. Pepper. Brands make a difference. You've built yourself a brand, John. You've built yourself a reputation as a hardworking, honest Texan, Tejano, servant of the people of San Antonio. You've done that in your career as a law enforcement officer, as a firefighter, as a little league coach, as a football coach, as a person that cares about your community, that's always hiring underprivileged kids in your own private company to give them a hand up, not a handout. And people are looking at that, and that's exactly right. There are a lot of us, a lot of conservative Latinos that are upset that the triple threat, that is, that Monica de la Cruz, Mayra Flores, and Cassie Garcia, all three didn't win. But my response is, what do you expect after 100 years of blue Democrat, voting trends? You can't flip that in 1 year. And so what you've got to look at is the trends. And I was fascinated, and we're going to talk to Professor Cortina from the University of Houston here in a minute about these trends. But as I looked at the numbers last night, I started looking at South Texas counties. Republicans were receiving 36, 37, 38, 39, 40% of the vote, which is a good trend. I've always said we don't need 51% of the Latino vote in Texas. If we're in the upper 30s to 40s, we're in good shape for the foreseeable future. And the question is, where is that trend going to go? So, John, take a moment to revel in your victory. Thank your supporters. I know you had supporters statewide, both financially, but you had supporters in your community. You had neighborhood grassroots door campaigning. You had everybody pulling for you, the firefighters. Who do you want to talk to this morning, and what do you want to say to them?
Well, first of all, I'm thankful to my family, my wife, and my boys. I put them through a lot, right? And in fact, my wife today said, "Do we have anything to go to today, or can I?" I said, "Man, I want you to stay home and relax." I had to get to the office. I have work to do, and I'm behind a lot on things. I want to catch up on projects, so we're taking care of that. But you know what? If everybody would use this, and when those numbers come out, Orlando, to say, "Hey, we're in all this together," because you're right, it was firefighters, neighborhood, but man, TLC played a big part in this. You guys don't realize the importance that you guys play on an individual person to keep my momentum going, to know that I have people behind me. Because as a candidate in Orlando, you've been there, right? You get all the fanfare, and then you go home at night and you're thinking, man, I feel alone. I'm on an island by myself, and I just had people all around me. But it hurts. But then when you have people, you have organizations like TLC and the things that you guys do, and then you're right. I'm blessed. I have the firefighters and I have the community. All of that means a lot. And if we can just continue to do our part, we're going to make a difference. We're already making a difference. And, I was a little discouraged yesterday, but then as I look at the overall picture, I think we're on the right path. We have to go through these steps to get to where we need to get to. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for everybody my phone has just been texting. I have work to do, but I think I'm going to stay here in my office today, just responding to texts and phone calls the whole day. But it needs to be done because I'm just really thankful to everybody and really thankful to you guys. You guys have, even when you've asked me to speak at locations, when I have to prep for that speech or I'm going to talk to those students, I grow from that. There's nothing more than just hanging around with good people, knowing the cause, and all working together to do that. So thank you guys for doing your part. And I don't mean that just because I'm on your show. You guys are awesome. Thank you all so much for what you do.
John, thank you so much. And the last question before you go, because we know you're super busy today. We know for a fact that being in a blue county, many people, even though that they used to vote Democrat before, they vote for you. What it happened? What you did different that is gonna teach us for the future candidates to just vote your values?
You know, the biggest thing that I think people are going to have to realize is that when it comes to the R and the D, that's such a sensitive. If you just stay right there with faith, family, freedom, stick with those values, because people always want to pull you to the far right, right? And then a lot of times a person might they will attack the far left, and then you're going to hurt those. But if you just stay true to your values and say, man, I don't want to play these games. I'm here for the community. I'm here for our people. I want to better our culture and our community for future generations. When we start speaking like that, that's what they know and they understand. When we start talking about the far right stuff, you're going to scare them away. But you just say, no, this is who I am: faith, family, freedom, and let's do the right things. Both sides resonate. I had a lot of people that vote all D, but they said, man, you're the only R we voted for. Oh, we know you because they know what I've been doing in the community and those kind of things. And I think that's what's important, especially in the Hispanic community. If we can get the candidates to realize that, because a lot of times we hook in with the party and then we want to go that far right to grab everybody over there and just say, no, I'm going to stay true to my community. I'm going to stay true to my convictions, and the rest will work itself out. That's when we get blessed.
I think so. This time, people vote more for the person than a party, and that's very important. Well, John, thank you so much. I know you're super busy today. Congratulations. We're so happy for you, and let's keep in touch because it's a lot to do. This is just the beginning.
And you guys know that I'm a big, firm believer in the mission of TLC. So if you guys need me, you just reach out to me. I'm there for you guys. Thank y'all so
Amen.
much.
Thank you.
Well, we'll always need you. Don't go too far. We'll be calling on you, but enjoy the holidays. Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and we'll see you at the New Year, John. Congratulations, well deserved. You're an excellent candidate and a great representative for Texas, and I'm proud of the people in Bexar County and in your district that did the right thing. So thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All right. So speaking about elections and trends and, early breakdown of the numbers, one of our dear friends from the University of Houston Department of Political Science, Professor Cortina, is with us. Jeronimo Cortina has become a friend of the programs. He's always available to help us analyze the numbers, crunch numbers, talk about trends. And Professor, as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not so much for the winners and losers. I like to win, but I like to look at trends. Were there any trends that stuck out to you, at least from the Latino perspective? And of course, you know that we here at TLC, we have to pick a team, and we generally play on the red team. So let me put that out to begin with. But I like good, fair elections. I always remind my friends after an election that if you go to the Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia outside of Washington, and you look at the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of burial sites, there's a lot of Republicans and Democrats in those graves. And so that's what America is. But talk to us about the trends.
Well, first of all, Orlando and Andrea, thank you so much for inviting me. I always enjoy talking to you guys. Well, I think it was very interesting to see a couple of dynamics, right? I think we had a lot of hype, especially when we were thinking about South Texas. And I just want to give a little bit of context. South Texas represents around 4% of the total Texas electorate. And when you look at the Texas electorate, it's a little bit less than that when you're thinking about it in terms of the Latino electorate. South Texas was certain districts, especially Representative Flores' district was flipped in the special election. She won the election. This time around, she lost the election by around 8.59 percentage points. And then you have Monica de la Cruz that won that election in District 15, a district that was redistricted, a district that became Republican with the redistricting round. So that's a very important explanation, just not to go beyond what the data is suggesting. there has been a lot of talk if Latinos are Republican or are trending Republican, and I think that Representative Lujan, it's a good indicator, right? And what he said at the end, I think that's the nail. He just hit the nail, and it's when you look, for example, at Lujan's website and compare that with Flores, right? With Flores, we're seeing the nationalization of local politics, right? Flores website is it's a website that gives you a message in terms of what let's say the extreme right members of the Republican Party, the MAGA movement, is giving you that message. Just exactly what would Donald Trump would say in a campaign. On the other hand, you have Representative Lujan's website, right? That it's at the community. We are for public schools. He's the son of an educator. We are for safety. We are for border security. No one is against border security. Depends how you do it, right? He talks about affordable healthcare, issues that have a resonance within the community, right? In certain interviews, he says, "Well, I'm not that hard right conservative," right? So it shows that there is a wiggle room. So, in a nutshell, the lesson for me, looking at the numbers, looking at these races that were already very hyped up, especially in South Texas, looking at what happened here in Harris County, Fort Bend County, so on and so forth, I think that in terms of the Latino vote is, yes, as you say, Orlando, the door has been cracked, but now the message has to be a message that has an echo within the community. For me, the Latino vote is, and actually I have research on this, is yes, they might be Republican, right? In terms of values, family values, work ethic, entrepreneurial activity, so on and so forth. They're the right type of constituency for the Republican Party. However, if the messaging is a MAGA Republican, I don't think that Latinos are willing to vote for that. And we just saw it, especially in South Texas, that is not going to go very far. On the other hand, you have Representative Lujan and many other Latino candidates across the state that were, let's say, 1990s, early 2000s type of Republicans, and they were very, very, very successful. So that's in a nutshell in terms of the trend. Harris County, very interesting race at the county judge level. You had a race where Alexandra del Moral Miller poured around $9 million. It's unprecedented for the county. Lina Hidalgo getting 2.4, $2.5 million, and still, got that win, but obviously very close. So a lot of things going on in terms of that, but that's the first lesson that I get in terms of how the Republican Party in Texas can make inroads is okay. People are not buying this type of product very specifically.
There's so much to talk about, and I appreciate your comment about money. Back in it reminds me, in 2001, Professor, when I ran for mayor of Houston against the incumbent Lee Brown, I had zero money in the bank, and the mayor had $2 million. And the media always says, "How are you going to compete?" And I said, it's votes that matter, not dollars. Don't vote.
Right.
And that's exactly right. People think that $9 million is going to win you a race. No, it's not. You have to have adequate amount of funding, but you also have to have the right message and whatnot. So, and I say this, Professor, because I get a lot of young Latinos that want to run for office, and they're discouraged because they don't have money. And I always say, don't worry. If you're right on the issues and you know your community and you have a connection to your community, you have a chance. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
And I think these days it changed the game with social media. You can do so much with social media and not spend a biggest amount of money, and also the right message that you're saying. And John Lujan is a perfect example. As he is from the community. We were in San Antonio with the bus tour that we did, and I was looking at people talking to him and saying, "John, I just saw you in my church. John, he is like one of us, like part of a community." So I think that make a big, big difference. And you could tell that he was reachable all the time with the people. He was like talking to everybody, and the fact that he was like, and he was telling us, people, I'm a coach for soccer team, so people were like, I'm gonna vote for you, even though that I always vote Democrat. So I think that make a huge difference. And sometimes people think these days that you need to spend a lot of money on TV, radio, and I think you need to spend more time and looking at your heart and really show the community that you care more than
Right.
showing the community that you have these fancy commercials.
And also, the race between Frank Ramirez and Representative Lujan was very interesting, right? It was a very civil race. Both of them during the campaign, closer to the election day, you start to getting spice things up a little bit, and that's understandable. But it was a very civil race. Both of them spoke very highly of each other. Both of them centering the issues. Both of them, as you said, Andrea, came from the community, right? Both of them have very, very, very deep roots in South Texas. So this gives you a very important lesson, right? Run people that are from the community, right? Have a civil issue, because people are tired, right? Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, of the nastiness of politics, right? Is you start listening to TV, hearing all these nastiness, like, I don't want to know anything about it. So when you see a normal competition, and it was a competition in terms of ideas, different views, and different policy implications of what to do. But again, the issues that Representative Lujan and Ramirez were talking about were the same issues. The difference is how you arrive. For example, Lujan had one in terms of protecting foster children, right? It's how you get there. And that, I think, resonated among the community. He won. Is still a very, very competitive district. It's one of the few House districts that are competitive in Texas. He won by about 3,000 votes, around 4 percentage points. That is extremely competitive district. So he has to do a good job if he wants to keep his job for the next 2 years. So that's also a very good indication of how competitive these races at the local level are becoming, because politicians, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, whatever it is, have to deliver to the constituency. And that's extremely important, because at the end, we're going to benefit from a hardworking representative wherever we are.
Professor, there's so much I want to talk about, and I just love listening to you and picking your brain. And I'm going to be quite honest. I said long time ago, and I'll repeat this, Donald Trump was a product of the failures of the Republican Party. For many years, the Republicans talked a good game on fiscal conservatism, but even during the George W. Bush era, they spent like drunken sailors. They ran the national deficit up. They ran the national debt up. Spending was out of control. And then yet our party is the one that accuses the Democrats of spending out of control. So Republicans nationally were just fed up. The border was never attended to. Spending was out of control. There was just, it was crazy. I mean, Republicans were winning, but they weren't delivering. You see what I'm saying? And so in comes Donald Trump, says, China's taking our jobs. We're destroying our country by letting all these Mexicans and Central Americans in, and Mexico sends their worst. And, he starts talking all this divisive language that riles up, the right wing of the Republican Party, and we get Trump. And the reason I say that is now that the Republicans, it appears, are going to take control of the U.S. House of Representatives, it's questionable whether Herschel Walker wins in Georgia or not. But the point is, we have divided government. This is an opportunity for the Republicans to start setting their agenda for the next president's election, correct? And so here's what I want to say. Because I have become a big advocate that Republicans need to do something about stabilizing the undocumented Latino community in the United States, which is growing. And people say, well, why are you worried about the Hispanic undocumented? They can't vote. No, they can't. But you know what? Their children, their grandchildren, their cousins, their aunts, they vote. And so the Republicans need to show that we care about what's happened to the good people that, yes, they crossed the border illegally when we weren't looking, right? Wink and nod immigration system. but they've made a contribution in this country. What are we going to do for the 20 million undocumented aliens who have children and nieces and grandchildren that constitute about 60 million people in the United States? Now we're talking about a big percentage. So, so this is an opportunity for Republicans to lay out in Congress, in the House of Representatives, legislation that puts the Democrats, in my opinion, in a bad situation. For example, I'm a big advocate of giving a legal status to undocumented aliens who've never violated the penal code, that is, broken the law in the United States. No pathway to citizenship, but normalize them. Give them a legal status. Let them pay taxes. Let them have their Social Security benefits. Let them travel to Guatemala, Salvador, and Mexico, bury their loved ones, and come back to the United States with their family. What's wrong with that? We did a poll in Texas in the 5 largest counties, and Republicans even support that.
Yeah.
It's beyond me why the Republicans don't lay out a proposal that says legal status, renewable every 5 or 10 years, no pathway to citizenship. I can tell you what's going to happen, Professor. Biden will veto it because they are hell-bent on pathway to citizenship. Most illegal aliens don't want citizenship. They don't want to vote. They don't want to run for office. They just want to be here with their families. Am I right or am I wrong? Is this an opportunity for Republicans to lay out a course for a large growing segment of the voting population, say, here's what we're going to do for you? And before I get too carried away, I've always said to Republicans, because I have a dear friend that you know well, both of you professors, Professor Kleinberg at Rice University one day said to me, Orlando, children from the urban area, with low-income parents, have at least a 10,000 word vocabulary deficiency when they start education. What is wrong with pre-K education if it's giving a child that's poor a head start? Why do we fight that? Explain to me. So this is an opportunity for Republicans to deliver to the American people what they want and get away from this, elections are cheaters, the media is a bunch of liars, and, stuff that Americans don't care about.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you're right on point, and I think one of the most important issues is I think this election will give the RNC a little bit of respite in terms of really sitting down and say, okay, do we want to continue in this Republican Party controlled by President Trump, right? Whether it's right or not, we agree or not, that's a reality, right? When you look at the candidates that President Trump endorsed, there was a mix, right? And a mix, and you mentioned Georgia, voted for keeping so far Senator Warnock, but voted for the governor, right? The governor has been one of those Republicans that maintain, a traditional Republican stance, right? Early Governor George W. Bush kind of republicanism, this republicanism that tends to be very compassionate, right? And what you're talking about is compassion, and also not only compassion in terms of our values, as we are a country that we receive the poor, the tired, the huddled masses, but compassion also in economic terms, right? There is a labor shortage. All business persons in at least that I've had talked to in Houston, they say we need more people, right? So there's nothing wrong with what you're saying. The big question, I think, the big question is whether the Republican Party in Congress is going to have, enough votes on the one hand and enough internal cohesion to be able to put such a proposal forward. I think that if they put it, they're going to get Democrats that are going to add up. I think that the Senate is going to add up, and then the White House is going to be unable to veto such a proposal. But it has to become a partisan issue. It has to become the Gang of Eight 2.0 and try to move that forward. The question is, what are you going to do with the Marjorie Green Taylors in Congress, right? that are going to derail that process because they have a different political ideology, and that's fair enough. But they're not going to allow these, let's say, McCarthy is a very smart person, right? He can do it. I think that he has the political knowledge, he has the capital, political capital to move it forward. But whether they're going to be able to do it or not depends on the grip that President Trump has in in terms of the party, and if he decides to run or not. If President Trump decides to run again, that's the best thing that could happen for Democrats for the next 2 years. That's like a gift sent from God in the worst time ever. That's going to be the best thing that happens because the election and everything becomes Trump. It doesn't become what you're talking about, right? It's not about the policies. It's not about what's wrong with having, as you say, pre-K. I don't understand. It's better for the economy. It's better for
Yeah.
to create human capital, etc., etc. What's wrong with regularizing people that we already know that they're here,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, it boggles my mind. I have studied immigration for the past 25 years, immigration policy, and I still don't understand why we don't move it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, some of the stuff that I still to this day don't understand what CRT is. I mean, I understand what the fight's about, but it's like Republicans are shadow boxing, right? What are we fighting with CRT? Are you telling me that we as Americans shouldn't learn the horrible history of slavery?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
disagree with that. I think that every child in America ought to learn that we did enslave black people in this country and in the Americas so we don't repeat that mistake. I think that we
Absolutely.
need to teach every child in America that Hitler vilified the Jewish world and slaughtered millions of people. So we never repeat that. What is wrong with that? Now, if you're telling me CRT is about black power and that white people today are enslavers and we all hate, Caucasians all hate Mexicans and African Americans, I ain't buying that. And I don't think any reasonable person buys that. But Republicans get so wrapped up around the axle about BLM and CRT and all these imaginary boogeymen, that it just cracks me up and we're wasting time. And I'm looking at the Latino community growing in Texas and the United States and the large population of undocumented, good, hardworking people that don't want to vote. They don't want to ruin our elections. They don't want to be cheaters. They're contributing, for God's sake. What
Right.
are we going to do with the DACA kids?
Right.
Move that forward. Everybody in this country agrees that DACA children should not be punished for what happened. Get that. That's simple. That's bipartisan. Get it done. Am I getting too emotional?
Yeah, but no, I don't think so. But look at the conversation that we're having, right? I bet that if I have the same conversation with someone that adheres to those to those values and think of me as a professor that I'm indoctrinating people, we wouldn't get into the first hello, right? We wouldn't move forward. But
Yeah.
here is you're absolutely right. It's about history. It's about not repeating the same mistakes. I do not understand CRT. I don't know what is CRT. I don't teach that. I will never teach it because I don't know what it is, and I don't care what it is. Right? What I know, what I know is exactly what you said. There was slavery, right? We did terrible things to African Americans. We did terrible things, especially in Southwest, to Mexican Americans, right?
No
There
doubt.
was segregation. So it's we cannot erase that, right? I mean, that was done years and hundreds of years ago. We cannot erase that, but we need to move forward. And the only way that we need to move forward is by talking about those mistakes and learning, and young people learn about the history of their country. That's also their history. So
I think
I
that
don't
was
know.
the call to action. It's a lot to do.
Exactly.
Profesor Cortina, es siempre un orgullo tenerlo usted con
Sí.
nosotros. Y pudiéramos hablar 2 horas con usted, pero entiendo que usted tiene clase, tiene que hacer todo lo que tiene que hacer hoy. Así que muchas gracias, se lo agradecemos. Y André y yo le debemos un almuerzo en su restaurante favorito un día.
No, muchas gracias. Siempre un placer estar con ustedes dos. Muchas gracias.
Profesor
Okay,
Cortina,
thank you,
gracias.
Professor.
Thank you so much.
No, I
Wow.
think
I mean, I always fascinated talking to him. We learn so much.
And such a good guy. He's truly, after spending a lot of time with Professor Cortina, very nonpartisan. I mean, he tells it the way it is.
He tells you the
He
truth.
doesn't have a
It
dog in
is
the
what it
hunt.
is.
He's a political scientist. He
Yeah.
he truly
He
wants
just
to
go with the
know.
facts,
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
So now our next guest also fascinated his background and everything that we're gonna learn with him because this is Dr. Roger Morefield, Associate Professor of Economics in St. Thomas University, because we need to know now after the midterm elections and knowing how the economy and the inflation is right now, what is the forecast for 2023. Professor, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to hear everything that you have to say about this.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. I'm honored to be among such luminaries as yourself and Orlando and the professor and the representative-elect John Lujan. Um, well, where does one start? How does one follow the discussion that just ensued? But um, let me step out of my role as economics professor for just a second here. I greatly respect Professor Cortina, but I okay, faith, family, freedom, great. If we're going to label that MAGA Republican or something like that, then I'll take the label. I just don't enjoy that sort of label being put on, defenders of faith, family, and freedom. Uh, going to the economy, um, please don't shoot the messenger. I don't really have any good news there. If the economy is not already in recession, it's going to be real soon. And you look at all the usual suspects, the Conference Board Index of Leading Economic Indicators and all the economic forecasts, they're saying either we're in recession now or one is very likely by year end, which is, 2 months away or a month and a half away, really. So that's that's where we are, and looks like we're going to have possibly gridlock in Congress, um, and you know, actually, markets enjoy that. In October of '06, my wife and I. Oh, by the way, a little aside here. My wife is Latina. We were married in 2005. She came here from Colombia as a young teenager and became a citizen in 1972. And so she says, "Look, I'm American now, so please think of me that way." But she's given me lots of more understanding of the issues that are important to Latinas, and they obviously are the issues that are important to everybody.
Well, you have a
Uh,
good taste. I'm Colombiana too. So you have a good taste.
okay, mi esposa es de Bogotana, and
Bogotana.
I know very little Spanish, but at least I can, send out a phrase or two here and there. And I'm working on it. Okay, we've had such an interesting life and have been doing so many things. There just has not been time for me to work on a third language. But anyway, back to the economy. I think the inflation that is being reported is really understated. I don't think 6% is tells quite the whole story. And just I mean, most of the people that we know, younger than us, and of course I'm almost an octogenarian. I will be in May of next year, but most of the people that I know don't remember times of high inflation. You have lived most, if not all, your life in times of relative price stability, and here we are back to rampant inflation and the distortions that it's going to produce in our economy, such as and by the way, full disclosure, I actually taught my last class at St. Thomas in March, so I'm now dealing with that repugnant R word, so I'm a little jarred when somebody says, "Hey, Roger, congratulations on your retirement. But I'm working with that, and I'll get there. But anyway, my 403b plan, given the balance in that retirement plan that I have, the money that I have there, if inflation continues at the same pace that it's been going recently, if it continues that way for a year, I will lose $70,000 of purchasing power in a year. And that is a hidden tax. They didn't even bother to send me a bill, and so it distorts incentives. Money becomes more of a hot potato. You got to spend it quickly before it loses any more value and that sort of thing. So, we're seeing high interest rates and rising. We're seeing, of course, as far as the employment situation, it's really a little strange. There are labor shortages, but we seem to be disincentivizing work. And a couple months ago, the CEO of the League City Regional Chamber of Commerce said we're facing a tidal wave of resignations. So people are leaving the labor force in droves, and that's part of what's causing the labor shortage. As to the causes of the current inflation, we see lots of people blaming the pandemic or this or that. That economic genius, Sheila Jackson Lee, in an interview the other day said, "Oh, it was the hot weather." But so
much
I
for that
think,
Yale education.
Oh, is that it? Okay. Well, I went to Duke, and we call that little school up there in Cambridge the Duke of the North. But anyhow,
Professor, I don't mean to cut you off, but let me
ahead.
talk about some
Go ahead.
specifics. We measure GDP, right? Gross domestic product. Government
Right.
spending is a huge part of that calculation. Am I right or wrong?
You're correct.
So government does have some, even if it's tangential, effects on inflation, recession, shortages, whatnot. For example, when the government, let's say, curtails drilling and exploration, that's going to have an effect on the product, which is crude, right?
Precisely.
And when the government says to bakers in America, quit baking bread, that's going to drive the price of bread up because there's going to be a shortage of bread, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So a fascinating thing. America, the Biden administration, led by the far left and the Democrat Party, want to fundamentally transform energy consumption in America under this theory that we're burning the planet up. Now, I
Yes.
think science is out on this, right? Some scientists say, look, yes, we're experiencing occasional rises and drops in global temperatures as we have over the millennia, right? We went through an ice age, we've gone through floods, but
Correct.
now every storm, every tornado, every hurricane, every flood is climate change, which used to be global warming.
Right. That's what we're
I'm an
doing.
environmentalist. I believe that we all, as human beings, have to be stewards of the environment. So I'm watching Sky News or the BBC, I can't remember the other day, and there's a meeting in Europe of the Green New Deal guys. And the
Right.
Prime Minister of Pakistan says Pakistan just experienced torrential flooding, and it's caused $30 billion in damage in our country. And you know what
Yes.
his statement was? That Western countries need to contribute to the restoration and rehabilitation of Pakistan. Is that the Green New Deal? Is this what it is? It's a transformation of money from or a transfer of money from energy-rich countries to poorer countries. Explain this to me because I don't get it. Why is the Prime Minister of Pakistan asking the West to pay for the floods in Pakistan? And by the way, why did the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom jump in and said, oh yeah, our economy is so strong here in Great Britain, we're going to contribute £5 billion?
So you're asking me to explain the Green New Deal?
I'm just trying to figure out these economic trends in the world.
Yeah. Well, the Green New Deal is a utopian dream, and it's to me it's a utopian nightmare. we're going to be dependent on fossil fuel for a long time. And, I'm thinking it's going to be half a century before we ever really make substantial advances against the use of fossil fuel. And, unlike many people, I believe time is on our side. Technology is changing, and the technological solutions will be forthcoming in time to save the planet. So in Orlando, I'm getting a lot of vibe of fear and confusion from my undergraduate students. They've been told so many things about this.
Oh yeah, no, the young people believe the world's coming to an end. I mean, it was supposed to end 10 years ago, but we're still around. But I think now they're telling them in 5 years it's coming to an end. We're all going to burn up.
Well, in the 19th century, William Stanley Jevons, the coal question in the UK, we're going to freeze in the dark because we're running out of coal. So 1970, the Committee on Growth anyway, The Limits to Growth was the name of the book. We were going to run out of everything in just a few years, and so we keep hearing those things over and over and again, and every time.
You know what? That's funny. You and I are old enough to remember Jimmy Carter in the 70s in his sweater with his thermostat set at 50 saying, and this was a nuclear scientist, right? That we were going to run out of fossil fuel, that we had to keep buying from the Saudi Arabians because there was just no energy left in America. This was 1976. I mean, it's like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah. I love Jimmy Carter much better as an elder statesman than as a president, quite frankly. But back to, go ahead, ask me what you'd like to know, or Andrea.
Let's we don't have much time left for the show. So what I want the viewers know is like, what is the landscaping on terms in economy we expecting for next year after these midterm elections?
Well, given the gridlock in Congress, markets will, enjoy that. But don't go by what financial markets are saying. As Paul Samuelson famously grumped a long time ago, financial markets have predicted 9 of the last 5 recessions. But in other words, financial markets are not a good predictor of recession. However, we have many other reliable predictors of recession. And so I think, and I don't like to be the bringer of bad news, but I think that we are going to have very slow growth and a relatively high inflation throughout the next year.
Explain to people, or is recession opposite of inflation? In other words, are they opposites? Do they coexist? Explain to the public what the difference is.
Well, at one time, yes, recession and inflation were opposites, but in the 70s, we got a combination of recession and inflation. And I believe it was Abbott Lerner of the University of Chicago coined the term stagflation, combining the word stagnation and inflation. So I think we're looking at a stagflationary economy again next year. Okay. And also the definition of recession seems to be morphing a little bit. It was always 2 consecutive quarters of decline in real gross domestic product. This one may just be a growth recession where the growth rate goes down to near zero, but not below zero. We'll see how that works. So we may have to tweak our definition of recession a little bit.
Right. Professor, it's been an honor to have you. One of the good things and the good news is I tell people, don't despair. One of the most beautiful thing about free markets is that it finds its own level. Recessions come, inflation comes and goes. We have experienced a time of relative price stability, economic opportunity. There were some benefits to producing a lot in China. That means that we became consumers. Everybody bought a new 70-inch TV. Everybody had a new, laptop computer. We had chips that were made that did phenomenal things. We have telephones now that do more than the Apollo 7 capsule had in computing power.
You bet.
So, the economy is the economy. It'll come and go. And we're going to survive. The important thing is that we preserve free markets, that we preserve capitalism, and that we have a good government that understands good fiscal policy.
You're preaching to the choir, my friend. I agree.
All right,
100%.
Professor. Well, listen, it's been a real pleasure to have you. Enjoy your retirement. Thank you for your service to our youth. Hopefully you've put out some of the greatest economists that are coming in the future. Godspeed, God bless, enjoy the holidays, and hopefully we'll have you back on the new year to talk about the new economy.
Thank you, sir. I'd love to do that. Thanks a
All right,
lot.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Andrea.
Well, we're going to see what is going to happen with all the results. We're going to still watching the numbers.
Yeah.
And
Not much is going to change. Divided government. That's good for the stock market. By the way, I get a kick out of Joe Biden. I've got 4 minutes left. So it's the end of the year. I feel a little giddy. Joe Biden. Remember, he was trying to appease Ocasio-Cortez, right? To say, yeah, the energy companies are monsters and they're horribles. And look at their profits. They're $20 billion in profits. And I said to the other day, well, who's profiting? The American stockholders. Who profits? Retired people like the professor, like I'm going to be here pretty soon, that have investments in 401k and the stock market. When Exxon does well, when Chevron does well, when British Petroleum does well, when General Motors and Ford does well, when Pfizer does well, I do well. We own those companies. It's not some guy behind a curtain that owns those companies. So Biden says, he trashes the oil companies, vilifies them, stops production, shuts down Keystone Pipeline along with, Obama. And then all of a sudden, crap, we're back to buying inflated fuel from the Middle East. Biden now has gone to the oil companies and said, please help us.
Yeah.
And they're like,
seriously?
Really? Go away. Anyway, speaking of mistakes, so everybody's looking at this sign. We used to have a beautiful sign back here.
Yeah, I know. And you took it last Wednesday.
This is what happens when you let me do mechanical stuff. I took
I
the
know.
sign down because I had. By the way, we have been interviewed. Texas Latino Conservatives we were on national Indian television last night. That went global.
So far it's India, France, Germany,
UK, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and 6 different countries. My God. So, yeah.
You're being really officially global.
So TLC has gone global, and I took our beautiful sign that we spent quite a bit of money on. I think it cost us a couple $100.
And it took it a second just to break it up.
And I used it to, build a brand. Right, Mark? I mean, you got to
you unbuild the brand.
Because I was trying to build
I was
the
watching
brand.
you unbuilding the brand. And mark the brand.
And it's one of these things that's coiled, and you raise it up with a little stick. And, well, it came off the little stick and went crashing down.
Yeah.
And now...
But it works that day at least. So far, we make it happen.
Our
And
sign-
you were with a sign behind you during the interview. Then I came here today to the studio, and I told Mark, our producer, I said, I bet you anything Orlando is not bringing the sign because it's some way that we can fix it here.
Well, that's what happened to our sign. And so it's not that we're going really fiscally conservative.
But you know what?
But actually, it looks
But
good. This is Mosier Media in
No, but
Houston.
Mosier Media solved the problem right away, and that's what it matters.
They made a Xerox copy. But let me just say...
Well, that's our new Green Deal.
Green Deal.
Yeah, that's our new Green Deal. But by the way, we're at Mosier Media Studios in Houston, Texas, and generally do a fabulous job. But
in case that somebody needs a production or something,
this is called a green screen, Mark. We should be able to project the TLC logo on here. So to the chairman of the board, the president, and the staff at Mosier Media, come on, guys. It's a green screen. All right, it's time. We got to go.
Ok, ya. Se te acabó el tiempo.
Se nos acabó
Land the
el
plane,
tiempo.
como dices tú. Land the plane. Land the
All
plane.
right. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos hoy. Siempre disfrutamos tenerlos ustedes en el programa con la gran dama de Colombia aquí, Andrea
And we have a lot
Gomez.
of comments today.
We have a lot of comments. I want to remind people, we depend on your contributions. If you enjoy what Texas Latino Conservatives is doing, that is building the farm team of the future conservative Latino leaders in Texas, help us. We rely on your contribution. This organization exists solely by the generosity of Texans across the state of Texas. So go to our website and make a contribution. You can do $5. You can do $5,000. You can do $500,000. We will put the money to good use. And by the way, let me just give you an example of the good use that we put the money to. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a young lady in League City, Texas, by the name of Larissa Ramirez, had never run for public office, and decided to run for city council because she was inspired by a young lady named Mayra Flores. Mm-hmm. And she called me and she says, "What can I do?" And I said, "Do you have a website?" She said, "No." I said, "Do you have any literature?" She said, "No." "Do you have any push cards?" She said, "No." I said, "Do you have any endorsements?" She said, "No."
Boom, boom,
TLC stepped in less than 24 hours, created a website for her, got her a prestigious list of endorsements, including former congressmen and women, former city council members, Jerry Patterson, this former land commissioner of Texas. And last night, Larissa Ramirez was the top vote getter in League City, Texas. Congratulations to Larissa. Congratulations to the voters of League City for picking the right person. And we're going to win that race. We're going to go back in tomorrow. We're going to help Larissa Ramirez become the next city councilwoman in position 7 in League City, Texas. That's what Texas Latino Conservatives does. They say, why is that important? Why is it important to elect Michelle Gamboa to the Longview City Council? Why is it important to elect Larissa Ramirez to the League City Council? Why was it important to elect Joel Castro to the Alvin City Council? Or who's our friend up in, I'm getting old, in Dan Corrales. Why was it important to elect Dan Corrales? Mm-hmm. Or why was it important to elect Roman Garcia?
They're the future.
This is the future of conservative leadership in Texas. That's what we do. That's what we do best. So help us, make a contribution. Andrea, it's all yours.
Okay, finally I can talk. Just go to our website, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Nos vemos el próximo miércoles. Chao, chao y gracias.